Hello, my name is Patrick Cooney. Thank you for watching my presentation on human nature and politics. About 20 years ago, I started a website called newsbatch.com. The idea of the website was to provide basic information about the range of policy issues, political issues that are being discussed in our country. And what I found was that there appears to be limited appetite for appreciating the facts behind these issues. People would rather take positions on limited knowledge than spend much time learning about the issues themselves. And then what I also realized was that it was the underlying human condition or human nature that often guided the positions that people take on these issues. And I also concluded that if we understand the way we look at these issues and how human nature plays into such attitudes, then we can take steps to have better outcomes. Speaking of those outcomes, I find it helpful to look at what I would like to see as the outcomes in the near future, and it also happens to be what many of my friends that I talk to also wish for. I would like policies that will protect our Earth for future generations. I would like policies that guarantee employment to every family in the world, along with essentials of opportunity and freedom from financial stress. And I would like an end to the reality of war. Now, I don't think these are really pipe dreams. I think we're already making progress. And I would like to point out that these goals are not necessarily what has been traditionally the goals when we talk about politics. Traditionally, and even as it is analyzed at present, politics are considered pretty much what's in the self-interest of the organization that's participating in the political system. But these goals aren't in my particular interest. They're in the interest of everyone. And so many people I know agree with me. It's time to take a different look at the way we look at politics. We're making progress, as I said, in terms of carbon emissions. We've got a long ways to go. Here's something that is very interesting. 200 years ago, just about everybody lived in extreme poverty. And as recently as 1990, fully 40% of the world's population was in extreme poverty. Today, that number is less than 10%. We are rapidly changing the possibilities of human satisfaction. And the overall number of conflict deaths has changed as well. Turning to human nature, what is it? It is the general psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits of humankind regarded as shared by all humans. And I think it's related to how we fit into the animal kingdom. Are we naturally good or bad? Well, there's the thin veneer theory that basically takes the position that we are all in our innermost instincts deceitful and will take advantage of each other, as exemplified by the Lord of the Flies, which used the example of teens who had not developed the sophistication to cover up such basic attitudes. But a researcher named Rutger Bregman found a real life for Lord of the Flies. He uncovered a story where some youths in the South Pacific were trapped on an island for over a year, and they developed terrific friendships, and they cooperated with one another, and they are friends to this day. Then there's also the wealth and power corrupts theory. The idea there is, as long as people have nothing, they will work together and be helpful to one another. but once they achieve some level of wealth and power, then they tend to abuse their status and tend to be deceitful with each other and subjugate groups below them. My theory is that all these are true to some extent. I kind of think I've kind of come to the conclusion that there are three basic often conflicting attitudes that people have, and that's basically all of us. We are naturally drawn to cooperation because we need to cooperate with each other in order to survive. But we have always been overpopulated. That is, until about the last half century. There hasn't been enough food for everybody. So we have developed the instinct to compete among ourselves and among our tribes for limited resources. And more recently, we have developed this attitude that attaining momentary pleasure in preference to other values is paramount. And I call that consumption. I find that cooperation as a human's instinct has no negative aspects to it. It's always positive. It provides us with terrific satisfaction and pleasure. We are instinctively drawn to it because of our survival instinct, and we naturally provide service in our homes, at work. I think work is such an important aspect of human existence. It's the way we all contribute to making the system work for everyone. And it's true that cooperation is important in our communities. Competition, on the other hand, is often negative and destructive. It has the positive aspects of providing rewards for achievement, but people can respond to that instinct if the rules are set forth for them to compete in a way that the social outcome is desirable. Competition is the underlying motivation for greed, a human trait that is responsible for massive human misery and injustice. And in its social context, competition is exemplified by tribalism, which is manifested by racism and excessive patriotic attitudes. Our political systems, in actual operation as they are studied, are almost always seen as the process of addressing competing interests. But there's no longer a reason for excessive competition. Historically, we've always been overpopulated, but technology has now created a world where there's plenty for everyone. I also think that the modern trend toward consumption is mostly a negative development. It involves prioritizing momentary individual pleasure over service and competition. And the modern manifestations include the high rate of recreational drug use and hyper-focus on sexuality. It's environmentally dangerous. And it's interesting to contemplate what has contributed to the rise in consumption as a human behavioral value. It could be that as we have achieved this economic situation where there is now plenty of resources for a significant portion of the human race, that people have now developed the attitude that they are going to consume these resources rather than continue to cooperate and compete for them. But I also think product promotion through advertising has done a lot to popularize, if you will, consumption as a human behavioral trait. And that's an important idea, I think. If we look at cigarettes, just as an example, it was product promotion starting with their invention in the early part of the 20th century that led to their rise. But notice that there was another peak that occurred after 1950 due to the rise of television advertising. So what does this all come out to? I think we can use our same media resources to do what television did to cigarettes in favor of cooperation. But we can only do that if we understand that human nature underlies all of our political challenges and obstacles. Thanks for listening to my presentation, and I hope you agree with these ideas.